Hello, hello. This is Yuri with Let's Talk Moving and Moving Sales Professionals. And with me today, I have Mario Reyes with South Bay Moving Systems. He's been on this podcast before. He is honestly one of my top three guests at this point, and I love having him
Thank you.
again. So he's joining us again today. How you doing today, Mario?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking, Yuri, and I'm glad to be back on your podcast.
Great. Thank you very much for joining us again. So, Mario, obviously we haven't had you on in more than a year. So, of course, what is your view? What are you seeing from the industry today versus last time we talked, which was a little bit over a year ago?
Oh, wow. I think that the high interest rates, the fact that we had so much work over COVID, it's thinning out a lot of the movers. So you're seeing movers close or downsize, which, to be honest with you, and I hate to say it, so the darts are going to be thrown at me. It's time. And it's a cycle. We went through a great economic period, and we're just on a downtrend, but it will be back up again. Sometimes we can say with a lot of things in life that it's never happened before, but to be honest with you, it always has. So I think that it was needed. It's painful. It's painful for us at our company, but it's something that we needed to go through. And I'm not glad it happened because I wish the good times always lasted, but this is just something that it happens. You know what I mean? It's like there's ebb and flows, there's up and downs, peaks and valleys. So this is
And
one of the valleys, you
right,
know.
and we certainly, working with companies throughout the country, we're certainly seeing that firsthand because we have had some businesses that are either really, really downsizing their operation, going into, sleep mode, so to speak, and you have others that are shutting down altogether. And it's getting to a point where it's thinning out the industry, certainly, but honestly, you just gotta hang on. That's really the bottom line. I mean, I wish I could say something more. You got to hang on, and this time will pass. So we're seeing it.
I agree with you.
It's not one company over the other. Frankly, there's just less leads.
And now for a word from our sponsors. If you're a moving business owner, you may have already heard of Moversville, an email marketing service that helps moving companies increase, repeat, and referral business. But have you heard of Moversville Connect? Moversville Connect is an incredible resource for all things moving. They feature an array of vendors and services that cater specifically to the moving industry. You can find companies that provide moving software, moving sales services, marketing services, moving equipment providers, and much, much more. Visit moversville.com today to learn more.
There's less leads. There's less people moving. People are holding money closer to their west, and it's like the whole mixture of things. You got the housing market. Of course, you had the stuff that was past COVID. You still have the high interest rates. They're supposed to go down, but they haven't gone down low enough for us to see the floodgates open, obviously. And at the same time, we're also like, this is an election year too, so which also has effect on things. So we have
Correct.
to kind of just bear down and try to get through it. That's the bottom line. And one of the things, and I may or may not get crucified for that, but I think that a lot of companies are not accepting the fact that in some markets specifically, you have to go back to pounding the pavement. You have to go back to, going out with flyers, doing things that were working all those 20 some years ago. You almost have to go back to doing it again and get people's attention. You have to go back to it, and and especially for companies that have been in business long time. I'm sorry, guys, and I will say this, and I know Mario is going to back me up on this, but unless you're going to work with what's going on around you, unless you're willing to adapt with what's going on around you, you will perish. That's the unfortunate part. You have younger companies that are jumping in that know how to use social media. You got companies that are willing to do creative. They're willing to go down on prices if they have to, as long as they're making at least some kind of a profit. You're right now, the margins are getting very, very narrow. And the thing is that if you still want to stay at your level of profit, well, you might still make it, but you're going to lose your workers. You're going to lose your reach. You're not going to, at the end of the day, you probably won't make as much money as you think you will. And being stubborn is not going to help you.
No, I agree with you 100%. I mean, I think that's well said. I mean, on the labor market, we all have kids, we've got grandkids, we've got nieces or nephews. They're not gonna, it's not that they don't have the same work ethic. I mean, we can all say they don't work as hard as our generation,
Absolutely.
but the truth of the matter is we didn't work harder than our parents. You know what I mean? So like it's a transition and we all have to be prepared for it. It's like our parents would say, hey, you guys don't work as hard. We say the generation behind, oh, you guys don't work as hard. And they're gonna say the same thing about their kids or their nieces, nephews, associates, and things of that nature. But we have to adapt to whatever we're doing. I think there was an old car guy, Lee Iacocca. He made his fame when he was at Ford. He was president of Chrysler because he was the first person to have 2-year financing of an automobile. That was like unheard of. Like, oh, finance a car for 2 years? That's ridiculous. Now, what's that, 84 months sometimes if you want it? Like, it's just things change and, we have to adapt to what's going on. And that's just the way it is. And the first person, it's like everybody laughed about social media. This is now it's commonplace. So we have to adapt. Some of the larger moving companies, they didn't adapt and some of the smaller ones too. And it's hard for me. I'm not young. I'm not a young guy, but like we all have to adapt to what's going on right now.
Are you a mover looking to make an impact? Discover Moving Letters AI and join the ML Plus Club today to get 100 free letters for your campaign. Elevate your customer engagement with the personal touch of handwritten letters.
If you want to take your company to that next level, it's the only way to subscribe. If you're doing anything but Moving Letters AI, you need to get on it. So it's going to take your business to that next level. You're going to see an increase in that revenue. Let's go.
Don't miss out. Join the revolution and start making moves that matter.
Thing is this, there's ways around it. Like, for example, I had the pleasure of meeting Mario's son in October at a Massaro event. I really did. And you know what? I was very impressed. I still am. So in
Well,
a
thank you.
sense that he got it, it's like a really crazy mixture. So you have this guy that's young, right? That has all this energy and all these ideas in terms of social media and what have you, right? Who understands that whole thing because we all do. I mean, I'm not that old. I'm 41. So I'm old enough and young enough at the same time to understand the value of it, right?
Right,
But
right.
he is obviously quite a bit younger than I am. I forget how old he is, but he's young. And at the same time, it's like he has Mario sitting on the shoulder with all the knowledge behind that Mario has, and
Right.
it's absolutely awesome to see. I was very impressed with him, and it's great to see that. So if you are older generation and you don't know any of this stuff, you don't know the social media, you don't know the first thing about the internet because you used to old school and yellow pages, right? So if you don't know it, get somebody that does. Hire somebody
No,
that's going to bring
that's
you to the current century because that's the future. You gotta adapt. You gotta adapt. You can't stay in the same thing. It's kind of the same reason why I started this podcast in the first place. It was something that was, my marketing guy suggested, and he's like, "Hey, what do you think about it?" Okay. It took me 5 seconds, all of 5 seconds to say yes, let's do it. And here we are, more than a year later. I would like to say that we fill an educational niche in the moving industry because while we talk about sales and we talk about a lot of things, obviously I'm not making a push on certain subjects that other podcasts that talk about moving industry do.
well, you know what? I wanted to do it because again, I don't even like the way my voice sounds and but like I just wanted to come up with the times and I was like, you know what? I better either adapt or die. I'm 59 and so it's difficult for me to understand some of the things. I'm always constantly taking classes on AI, trying to just understand it all and how to monetize it. I think more than anything, I think that a lot of people, we sometimes, even when we understand it from our movers, can you monetize it? How can we turn this into money or revenue? Just because we have a show, how can we understand that? Or how do we at least know what we're talking about so that we can hire the right person to get us to that point,
We got
for
to talk
the
about
other
different
movers.
streams of revenue. You got to diversify. So you can't just Because these days, especially right now, especially if you're a smaller company that don't have, massive dollar coffers that would allow you to get through this time without changing anything, for example,
Right.
right? Uh, you need to come up with various streams of revenue. So you can't just stick just to moving. You know,
No.
you got to add other things. You got to add cleaning. You got to add painting. You got to add, touch-up services for, if house is nicked up, that the person is moving out of or moving to, or whether you did it or not. You got to add all these additional things. You got to diversify. So,
Which
and
you
if,
didn't have before. No,
yeah,
absolutely. Like no, that's a good point, Yuri. I couldn't say it enough or partner with someone that can do it, but you almost have to become a one-stop shopper, like you said, with marketing, pounding the pavement, going back to things that worked 30 years ago. I mean, like it's not like that everybody can do it, but billboards are starting to come back,
yeah.
where billboards died down for a long time and now they're
Well,
coming back. So
Yellow Pages in its physical form are probably not recovering or coming back, but there's always the electronic version of it. There's
this is
there's other
true.
ways, there's other avenues. You just have to explore everything that you can. I mean, obviously, you don't want to spend an arm and a leg, but I had somebody that mentioned this to me the other day. They put up, it wasn't a billboard per se, but it was a local high school in their town or whatever, and they had this dirt cheap advertising. It was either in their gym or on their football field or whatever the case, and it really didn't cost all that much. It was something like under $1,000 a year or something like that, $500
Mhm.
maybe. I don't know. But even things like that, look, if your company is based in town that's crazy about a sports team, football, baseball, whatever. If they're crazy about the local football team or like a high school team, even college team, whatever, check out that type of advertising.
No,
Maybe
for
getting
sure.
your
Yeah, I
name on
agree.
that. Maybe getting I mean, if it's a hockey game, I don't know how much it would cost to get your company's name on the boards at a hockey game, but they do those type of things too. So, I mean, look into that. Who knows? Maybe it's going to be less money than you think it is. I mean, obviously, I'm not talking NHL. That's going to be pricey. I'm not talking NFL. That's going to be very pricey, but something that's more localized, that local team or a couple of high school teams that are in the area, those seats are full every game. So if there's a
Massive.
way for you to get the name of your company in front of all these people, you might be hitting it might be a gold mine.
I agree. Again, that goes back to what we were saying a little bit earlier about trying to think out the box or think like a lot of people say you have to think out of the box. I like to say think like there is no box because just outside of the box isn't enough today. So I think that has to be a statement. You have to think like there is no box.
You can't limit
Um,
yourself.
no, no, you can't.
And once
You
again, I
can't.
say this a million times on this podcast, be creative, be creative, be creative. Come up with something
Correct.
that nobody else in your area is doing. Separate yourself. Whatever you need to do. There are a lot of options. You just have to sit down and come up. What is it in your area that's unique? Is there a grocery store, for example, that everybody goes to? Is there a movie theater that everybody goes to? Is there something else that everyone goes where it's like the big show in town where everybody goes there?
Yeah,
Find that
absolutely.
place and make sure that your ad or your billboard or something is somewhere there where people go into this massive attraction, go and see something. There's so many ways, but you got to think about it yourself. You got to creative. Every single town has something. Every single town in this country has a main street. You know, there's a lot of things like that you may found. They have, town fair. They have find out when those events are. Maybe for a very small amount of money, you can have some sort of a sponsorship where you can put your truck with your logo in there to help clean out the trash. Where we are based in Glendon, Maryland, so we have we live in Reisterstown, which is right next door to Glendon, right? And they have a fireworks and some sort of a fair every year. Once a year, they have a thing where they have some kind of concert, they have beer, they have all this type of stuff. So this past year, one of the local moving companies that's in this area, they had their boxes with the logo of the company as
Hmm.
trash cans all
Oh, that's
over this
nice.
event. So you have a
Oh,
box,
wow.
a regular moving box that has the logo of the company, the name, their phone number, all of that stuff on the box, all over this space where people walking around, having hot dogs, cotton candy, listening to music, having a beer, and you have these like probably a large size box or a dish pack with the company logo that was sitting right there all over the place. So they came up, so somebody came up with that idea there. They figured out a way to put that into play. So I'm assuming they reached out to organizers of the event and saw a way to sponsor that. Here
No,
you
that's a
go,
great idea.
guys. Free advice, free kernels of information that you can
Oh
use
man.
to help prop up your business. Like that's one thing that I could do for you here. Creativity. That's my second, probably my last name or third, fourth, 10th generation. I don't know. The other
Gotcha.
thing too is that when you go to these events, if you're not seeing moving company involvement, write it down somewhere. Just like, oh well, this is a good idea. Like any one of these events that you do or sports games that you go to or anything else that's going on in town, you know, I'm sure there's a way to pay money to somebody there to put your name and your logo somewhere in front of people.
No,
Whether you're
I can, yeah,
sponsoring, I don't
no,
know,
I
some sort of
agree.
a flyer or somebody or a menu for the event or whatever the case may be. There's gotta be ways to get your name in front of these people.
Correct.
And in most cases, if nobody came up with that idea, it may be dirt cheap because you may be the first one.
Right.
So it may not even cost you all that much, but of course you got to try it first. You got to come up with that idea, right?
So my takeaway from that is write down all your ideas and just have like a creativity mastermind on and then think about what ideas stick for your area and then that would be a good source of new advertising. If I understand that correctly, or what do you think? I think
Why
that's a good
not?
idea.
Look, here's the thing. Every single one of you guys that are listening to this podcast, you all live in an area of a country, right? You all know about your area because you're there every day. You go to the stores, you take your kids to school, you put them on the bus, you do things in town, you do activities. Once again, you're riding on a truck and helping people with their moves, so you're moving around. Look around you. What's out there? What's out there that draws crowds of people? And put yourself in front of it. When Trump was leaving office, right? A couple of my clients, because we're only an hour from DC, a couple of my clients that worked around DC area, Virginia area, that I worked with, we got multiple calls from people asking if they can pay us to put a moving truck outside of a White House.
Oh wow.
There was quite a few. It was
You're kidding
multiple
me.
calls.
Oh
No,
no,
I
that's
am not kidding you.
wow,
So
that's
we got
nice.
those type of phone calls, okay, where it
Hmm.
was like people that really wanted him out of office that put that out there. And it's almost people do think this way, right? So I'm not trying to get political. Those people that know me know where my views are in terms of politics. I never make
Right.
secret of it, but it's not something that I'm going to make this podcast about. I mean,
No,
I
no.
stick to the my support for Ukraine and I leave it at that.
No, but you know what? That's a
Um,
good marketing source. And yeah, no, that's something else. And it's a good share too. And everybody that knows you knows you. And I wouldn't, don't apologize for being yourself. I think that's
I don't.
a mistake that a lot of people make these days is they're
I, I,
apologizing
I
just
d-
to
I
be
don't,
themselves.
and what most people that do know me or get to know me will find out. I give it to you straight. I don't. I'm not somebody that's gonna go and do something that I'm pretty straightforward. Sometimes to a fault.
Now, why do you think that is today? And not necessarily, that like people don't want to hear the truth, or do you think that it's they're afraid of hurting someone's feelings, or what would you say? Or what's your thoughts on that then?
I think that we're living in a society where a lot of people are afraid of being themselves because they're afraid of how that self is going to be taken as. And who
Hmm.
knows what the reason for it is? Maybe they had a trauma as children, maybe they had issues in their grown-up life where they wanted to be something, but they couldn't be something for whatever reason. And
Hmm.
it doesn't matter where you're from, it doesn't matter what your orientation is or anything else in that regard. It's I think that in order to be a happy human being, you need to be happy in your own shoes and be
It's
comfortable with who
true.
you are.
It's
Like me,
true.
look, I know I'm overweight. It's okay. I know I could use going to the gym. It's okay. I don't mind looking in the mirror and I know who
That's a
I
good
am.
point. That's a
And I
good
know
point.
who I am. And I'm very
That's a good point.
comfortable in my own skin. And
That's a
that's
good point.
also part of the reasons why I'm comfortable doing this podcast, why it's fun for me, is because I am me. You're not going to get somebody, you're not going to hear me tear up about, some child story that I went through in a traumatic experience. First of all, I really don't have too many of those in my life, if any. And second of all, honestly, up to age 16, I was still worried about what other people thought about me. After I hit that, I'm like, screw this. There are people whose opinions and thoughts matter, and there's people whose opinions and thoughts don't matter. So you have to, as a human being, as an adult, you need to figure that part out in your life. Whose opinion really matters? Do I care what some moron who, in my opinion, haven't achieved anything in life thinks of me? No. Why should I? Why would I? I have my own thing, I have my kids, I got my family. Those are the most important things in my life. I got the business that I have that I enjoy very much. I got this podcast that's fun for me. And it's like I said, I'm very comfortable in my own skin. And I think that in order for everyone to be happy with their own life and to be comfortable in their, with themselves, they need to be comfortable in their own skin and they need to look in the mirror and accept who they are. There's
No, I agree
nobody
with
that's
you.
perfect in this world. Nobody. Everybody
No,
has
that's
their own
true.
skeletons in their closet, one way, shape, or form. We all gotta accept who we are and move on because it's gonna make your life easier.
No, I
Stop
agree with you.
concentrating what
Yes,
the other people
yes,
think about you. It's
yes.
not gonna get you anywhere.
No, no, I agree with you. It's a good point that you bring up, but I think that and today, I think that we got away from this. Everybody seems to know their rights, but they don't know their responsibilities as both as citizens or parents or friends or anything. And I think that's something that a lot of people kind of forget. And so, I mean, I just think, yeah, definitely. We all have a responsibility to be just decent people and I think that a little bit of that's been forgotten, decent employer, decent owner, decent, whatever. And I think that that's where a lot of things have gone south. Although I do think that people have misdefined individualism or
And
whatever as
people in this
far as
country are over medicated to make matters worse because it's like, look, there's nothing wrong with your kid having a lot of energy because he's 12. That's normal. He's
no,
12.
that's normal.
That's
No,
normal.
that's
He's
normal.
12. You don't
Agreed.
necessarily have to take him to a shrink. You don't necessarily have to get him medication just because he's being 12.
No, I agree with you. I
And
mean,
that
like,
goes for a lot of
yeah.
people. It's like, look, you got to define what it is once again that makes you happy in life,
Mhm.
and that, maybe you got to change your life altogether. If it's that bad, if you're that miserable, then whatever you're doing up to that point, it's not working. You got to accept that within yourself and look for what is it that makes you happy.
No, I
Are
agree
you,
with you there.
whether it's moving furniture or something else, regardless, you got to find something that's going to make you happy in life and it's going to help you achieve whatever goals there are. But of
That's
course, we
true.
can talk about that. We got way off subject here. We got into the personal feeling and in
Oh
general
no,
views
sorry
of
about that.
people's
Yeah.
personalities, but that's fine. So the other thing that me and Mario talked about a little bit, and I want to dive into this before we're all said and done here, but we were talking a little bit. Obviously, Mario does a lot of military moves. And we were talking a little bit about global household goods contract, GHC, something
Right.
that a lot of people are talking about. Some people are happy about it, some people are not happy about it. What's your take?
Well, I'm in the middle of both. Like, I just realized change is coming, no matter what. Like being 59, I remember when, there were ratings on movies and they were really adhered to, like R, PG, G. And I mean, they were strict about it now. Some of the things are just on regular TV. It's eye-popping. And I think that,
Yeah.
so you might like, oh, what does this have to do with the household goods contract? From what I saw, the pricing is a little bit off. But as the government goes, if that's what the government wants, eventually it's going to get rolled out. What shape or form, I don't know. If I had a scat code, I wouldn't be too happy. But if I didn't have a scat code, I may still not be too happy, but I would like to see some decent pricing. Today, it's just different because business owners and people that like the IRS is hiring agents at at a rapid rate than they ever have in their existence because they're chasing tax dollars. And there's things that a long time ago you could get away with that you can't. And the rates have to go up to match all the requirements that we need to adhere to. And so that I think that's where the GHC might be losing the boat a little bit, but I think they're going to rectify that ship, or I hope they do. If not, I just say stay off the ship. And that's what we may choose to do. But like right now, we're in to a certain extent. But am I happy about it? I'm like in the middle. I'm indifferent. And I just think that some people, if they're more vested in scat codes and the older way of doing things, which isn't really that old, yeah, I would be mad too. I wouldn't be happy. But, like we have to embrace change, on the corporate side of things, in the Trump administration, they took away basically like the moving tax, so he could write off moving. It's not even a party thing or whatever. It just happened, and we just have to learn to deal with it and adjust. So I think that's it's going to come. There's other things, security. Like I went to a symposium and spoke to some cybersecurity guy a year or so ago at an 8A convention in New Orleans. And we were talking about, the GHC. He knew a little bit about it, but he was like, hey, you guys are unsecure, and people can look at troop movements just on household goods movement. So they have to be on a more secure platform because anybody can hack, the local mover that is doing household goods and just things of that nature that like we have to be aware of, you know what I mean? Like if you start to see someone getting relocated a certain way and some foreign entities looking at that, they can actually track some of our troop movement or hack in and get addresses. I mean, I'm sure I could go down the list. I don't know that for a fact. Like I haven't sat in the Pentagon and seen or heard any briefings, but I'm sure all that had to, take into play of some of the GHC that no one talks about. But I get it. I don't have to like it, but I get it,
Yeah, but I mean, basically, I think, and we were talking about this a little bit beforehand, but in general, if you're going to do government work, it's a great thing to have a government approved warehouse. Because when I was working with a company that was doing that had contracts from Cartwright, for example, um, what we were dealing with, we saw a lot of shipments come through in the period where, frankly, as movers, we're the most busiest anyway, right?
Mhm.
So they're coming in between like basically like mid-April, and then they start dying down by like mid-August, end of
Mhm.
August, right? So if you want this to be a more year-round thing, even though it's a pain in the butt, get military approved warehouse because
No,
then
I
you'll
would say,
have that happening
yeah,
throughout the year, not just during that period.
I would say that I would say it's a combination, Yuri, of where you need to be. You have to have a couple of different revenue streams. And for some companies, it may not necessarily make a big profit, but a small profit and give you the opportunity to retain the guys from the summer to be able to build on that, just to have guys around instead of like almost closing down. In the past, it used to be like that, like after the summer. And then everybody has to realize this, the summer is not the summer anymore. It's a lot shorter. Before, when I grew up, the summer started on Memorial Day and ended in that Labor Day. So you were May 31st all the way into the mid-September. Now, the kids get out of school in June and they're back in the beginning of August. So that whole season has been condensed. So it's hard to get people to say, okay, before it was like, okay, this is a 3-month summer. It's not a 3-month summer anymore. It's it used to be like summer used to be for almost 14 weeks. It's not. It's less than, it's 10 to maybe 8 weeks really of summer is really busy. But I do, on your point about the military, it helped me grow my company, and it helped me keep guys year around so that I could have other opportunities with COD and other businesses. Now, you may choose later on to give that up to go to something else, but it's not about starting. It's not bad to go further. I mean, to like grow your business. So
Yeah, absolutely. So you got to, once again, it's a different stream of revenue. But of course, we can talk about this all we want. I think we've got a lot of great content here. So you guys certainly have things to listen to. Mario, once again, thank you very much for joining us today for the podcast. And as I always say, the world moves on its own, so let the professionals move yours for you. Thank you very much for joining us, and have a wonderful day. We'll talk again soon.
thank you, Yuri. And again, if I just ended with this, just like you said, hang in there. For the smaller movers that are experiencing economic times, hang in there. Things will get better. And thank you again for having me on, Yuri.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.